Hello, Uncle Ted, your ice cream alchemist with ice cream every day, and this is something a little bit special. We're at the holidays time, and I always try and do something that is specific for the holidays. So what I have here is a espresso chocolate hazelnut ice cream, and I've got that with some beautiful milk chocolate waffles that I made as a sandwich. And I tell you, I am so proud of how well these came out, and it's not that hard. There's a lot of steps to it, but I think you guys can do it, and I think you'd have great success. I often say if an unlovable loser like me can make these, then you can too. And these were actually very simple, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with our chocolate waffles, and I'm going to make sure to have this recipe posted in the comments. I found it online and used it. The waffle maker I have, the waffle iron, is about as old as I am, and I got it at a garage sale about 20 years ago for $1. And I use it maybe twice a year to make waffles, and it's come in handy. But the recipe itself is very simple. I'm out of regular cocoa powder, so I had to use the dark cocoa powder, and that actually lessened the cocoa flavor because dark has less of a cocoa taste than regular cocoa powder. But I went ahead and I made these just before making the ice cream base because they're going to have to freeze completely in the freezer before we use them. And so, once I went ahead and put those together, I put them on a grate so that they would cool off without collecting too much moisture underneath because we don't want ice crystals on there. And so once they got completed and they were chilled, I would wrap them up in plastic wrap and I put them on a plate and back in the freezer they go. One tip that I would give you is to brush on melted butter instead of using the spray oil. For some reason, it just seems to work out better. So I melted butter, got out my barbecue brush, and I spooned it on there. I was careful not to overload this because I don't want a bunch of flash. I don't want a lot of overage coming out of the iron, and I don't need that. So I try to be careful with how much batter I put on here. I ended up getting about six waffles with this. One of them wasn't completely formed, but that's okay because I still ate it. I actually smothered it with some Nutella and marshmallow fluff. I'm not sure what to call the sandwich, but it was wonderful. But yeah, that's just what we did here. I made sure to get all those waffles made and then stacked them up once they were cool off, wrapped them up in foil, and put them in the freezer. I want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my cousins Chad and Zoltan, because they've always been so supportive of me, and I appreciate it. It means a lot when family actually has nice words to say to you. So, now something else I'll say is actually yesterday was my mom's birthday, so if she's watching, hey mom, happy birthday. Hope you had a good birthday. Sorry I wasn't able to get down there, but so be it. Now, for the ice cream base, you guys have seen me do this a lot before. This is the simple base of 2 cups of whole or heavy cream and then 1 cup of whole milk, along with 3/4 of a cup of sugar and half a cup of non-dairy powdered milk, along with 1/8 of a teaspoon of guar gum. Now, that gravy whisk that I'm using there was given to me by my mom, and I actually love it more than using the other whisk. It just seems to work better, and I just love it that much more. So, what we do here is once we get everything hot and everything's going, then what we'll do is we'll start adding our other ingredients. I'm using 7 teaspoons of instant espresso. I prefer to use Bustelo, but it's so hard to find around here that I had to use something else. Which, if Bustelo wants to sponsor me, I would definitely make sure that everybody saw their logo because I actually prefer their espresso better than anybody else's, and I've tried a bunch of different ones. And then what I'm also doing is half a cup of the chocolate hazelnut spread. At this point, you can turn the heat off. We don't need to cook it. We just need to make sure everything's hot so that everything is properly incorporated. So yeah, just go ahead and turn the heat off and keep whisking. And then you want to make sure that when you put it in the fridge, the plastic wrap is touching the top so a skin doesn't form. And I do it overnight, but as long as it's completely cool after 6 or 7 hours, you're fine. I would estimate that I've run over 1,000 different batches of ice cream through my Cuisinart ice cream maker, and I would love to give it a name. So if you guys have an idea for what I should call my ice cream maker, please let me know. But I went ahead and put it in according to manufacturer instructions, and a few minutes later it was done. Now, granted, I didn't let it get as hard as it could have. I needed it to be spreadable, so I went ahead and did it this way. By the way, the light looks a little screwy because I'm using a headlamp they use for like coon hunting, but I need to get better light, sorry. Anywho, I go ahead and that's when I pull out my waffles from the freezer. Be very careful how you separate these. If they're stuck, you don't want them breaking apart. You just want to, pry them apart, put them on your cookie sheet. And if you have any flash on them, go ahead and get that off, because the flash doesn't, it becomes problematic, so you don't want to do that. And then what I do is I go ahead and get a nice big spoonful. I would say that I'm using probably a full cup, if not a cup and a half, or a cup and a quarter, excuse me, of the ice cream. And you got to work fast. All right, you got to work faster, otherwise this stuff is going to melt and you got a real mess. So go ahead and take whatever you got, a spatula or offset knife or whatever, and go ahead and spread that out. Now you'll notice that there are seams on the waffles, so you can cut it into quadrants. Get the top and bottom waffle lined up. Trust me, you'll see why later. But as soon as you get them put in, then you want to cover them up with plastic and get those right back in the freezer. Now that they're in the freezer hardening, here's what we're going to do. We're going to melt some chocolate. I'm using coconut oil instead of butter like I did last time because people told me to, and so I said, okay, fine. So I've got a couple teaspoons of coconut oil and then a bag and a half of dark chocolate morsels. Now I'm using dark chocolate. Obviously, if you want to use milk chocolate, you can. It's up to you. I preferred the dark chocolate, but it seemed to work okay. Then I went ahead and put it in a pan of water. I don't have a bain-marie, so I just made do with what I had, and used my pliers to hold on to it as I needed. Once the chocolate is thoroughly melted and you don't have any more lumps, then it's ready to go. You can actually take this off the heat, and be careful because of the hot boiling water, but yeah, you can take it off the heat because you're good to go now. And then what I did was I went ahead and cut these in the quadrants. Like I said, you want to line that seam up so they're easier to cut. And so I went ahead and cut these up into quadrants, and then I drizzled the melted chocolate over the ends. Now, this was messy, and I got bits of chocolate all over the place, including my camera and my tripod and myself. It was really an experience, but it worked out very well, and I got chocolate at least where I did want to get it. And then I put it on the rack to harden. Luckily for me, it's wintertime, my apartment's cold, it all hardened up very quickly, and I was able to put some holiday sprinkles on there to make them look festive. But I did a couple of these, made a huge mess, and I realized that I can actually work smarter, not harder. I'll take this opportunity to say that this is breakfast ice cream. This was intended as a joke years ago, and this is actually how I got started making ice cream videos, was that I was going to make a breakfast ice cream for a friend of mine, Lavern. And so this is Breakfast with Lavern, part 2. She's a wonderful lady, and I hope that she gets a chance to see this and tell me what she thinks. Then I figured out that if you dip them, you make less of a mess, you get more chocolate on there. The truth is, I should have done 2 coats instead of 1. The coat that I put on there was kind of thin, and so I should have done 2 coats. So that's all right, next time. But then I went ahead and dipped my little pieces in there and then put them directly on the grate and made sure to get them the holiday sprinkles. This is actually a wonderful thing. They tasted amazing. They look great. And if you're not eating ice cream for breakfast, then what's the point of being an adult? And folks, thank you so much for watching, and thank you for sharing the links. Please make sure to like and subscribe. I love you guys. Thank you.